Hello everyone, my name is Jay Jagadish from Tally Education Private Limited. Today I'll take you through the live webinar session on TallyPrime Release 1.1 enablement. So before getting into the session, I would like to request you all to confirm if I'm clearly audible or not. You can use the questions panel to type yes or no. Thank you all for confirming the audio. So as usual, in case in mid of the session, if you find any audio issues, you can use the question, inform us immediately. And if there is any issues from your side, so we always request you to relog into the session and then check. And in mid of the session, in case if you have any doubts, if you have any clarifications, you can use the questions panel and you can type your questions there. We'll be responding to all your questions instantly. Okay. So welcome to the session. So TallyPrime Release 1.1. So we have newly introduced e-invoices. Add e to your invoices with utmost simplicity. So e-invoicing in Tally is a simple and adding e to the invoice, where e stands for IRNA QR code. So GST E Invoice. So we are going to discuss about this in the today's session in detail. Okay, and looking at the agenda for today, so what all we are going to discuss in the today's session is, firstly we need to understand about e-invoicing. Okay, on what is e-invoicing, the purpose of e-invoicing, applicability and implementation dates, e-invoicing solution that adapts to your needs completely, that is benefits of e-invoice to the business, the e-invoice generation flow, e-invoice lifecycle management. And then we'll take you through TallyPrime and we'll show you how this e-invoicing will be taken care in release of TallyPrime, and how simplicity, how simple it is in Tally to generate an e-invoice. And then we'll have a look at the e-invoice report to get a bird's eye view. Okay, so all in one report we can generate in TallyPrime. And at last, if you have any questions, we'll answer to all your questions. So this will be the session agenda for today. Okay, so firstly, we'll try to understand what is this e-invoicing. So what is e-invoicing? So e-invoicing doesn't mean that generating the invoice on the GST portal. No. So we are not generating any invoices from the GST portal. Then what is e-invoicing? So e-invoicing involves registering of an already generated standard invoice on a common portal. And the invoice issued by the notified supplier without being registered at the IRP portal will be considered as invalid. So here we have a set of guidelines or set of rules we need to follow in order to get ourselves registered and then issue a e-invoice. And here in case of e-invoicing, so input tax credit is not available to the recipient without e-invoice format. Okay, so it's very clear that e-invoicing is not that we have to log into the portal and generate e-invoicing. No, and without e-invoicing, okay, so will not be able to issue it to the customer, and it is not considered as valid, and also ITC will also be not available. So it is mandatory that we have to issue an e-invoicing. So going further, we'll discuss what is the criteria. Okay, so those businesses who are must to generate e-invoicing. So that we'll discuss in upcoming slides. So what is the purpose of e-invoicing? So the main purpose of introducing the GST E invoicing is to curb the tax evasion. Okay, so ask for real-time data entries, lessen the scope of manipulation, and verify the genuineness of the refund. See, in case of input and output tax details are readily available in case of e-invoicing, and also to simplify the return process. So as you all know, so currently under GST we have the return process, right? So that return process will be simplified using this e-invoicing. So those invoices which are uploaded and registered by the supplier will be auto-populated in GSTR1 of supplier and GSTR2A or 2B of recipient. Okay, so along with this, so e-way bill also will be generated with the e-invoice. Okay, so all in one. So once after recording a valid tax invoice, so whatever required details will be fetched, it will be generated, and the tax invoice will be a complete one. So these are just the purposes of generating an e-invoicing under GST regime. So looking at the applicability and the implementation date, so now we have to understand so what type of businesses are mandatorily required to issue e-invoice. Okay, so those businesses which are equal or greater than 500 crores of their turnover, so for them the e-invoicing has been already introduced from 1st October 2020 onwards. And when it comes to those businesses whose turnover is equal to or greater than 100 crores, so e-invoicing is mandatory from 1st January 2021 onwards. And for other businesses, okay, tentatively, so e-invoicing will be made applicable from 1st April 2021 onwards. So if I say the turnover limit, so this is with regard to the turnover in the last preceding of 3 financial years starting from 2017 to 18. Okay, so from then this turnover is taken into consideration. Okay, so for almost all businesses whose turnover the last 3 preceding financial years is equal to or greater than 100 crores, so they will have to issue e-invoices from 1st January 2021 onwards. Okay, so this is just to make you understand the applicability and the implementation dates and what type of businesses you wanted to they are mandatory to issue the e-invoices. Okay. Next, so what type of entities are exempted for e-invoices? Okay, so the government has made some conditions saying that few entities or which are exempted from issuing e-invoices. So what type of entities? Like special economic zones, insurer or a banking company or a financial institution, okay, including a non-banking financial company, goods transport agency, that is GTA, supplying services in relation to transportation of goods by road in a goods carriage vehicle, suppliers of passenger transportation service, and suppliers of services by way of admission to the exhibition of cinematography films in the multiplex screen. So these are certain entities. Okay, for this type of entities, the GST E Invoice is exempted and it is not required to generate. Okay, so what type of transactions, that is those documents to be reported into the e-invoice systems? What type of transactions are mandatorily we must issue an e-invoice is firstly the B2B transactions, that is business to business and B2G, that is business to government. So any tax invoice we issue, or no, we issue to a B2B, that is business to business, that is from one registered dealer to another. Say for example, if I am a registered dealer, okay, registered under the regular scheme of GST, and if I'm making a supply of goods, okay, to a registered dealer, then it is a B2B transaction. It's a B2B supply of goods. So such type of transactions, so we must mandatorily issue a e-invoice. Okay, and apart from that, B2G tax invoice also. So B2G is nothing but from business to any government. Okay, any supply made from a business to government, so it is mandatory. So such type of transactions, so e-invoice has to be reported. And any export invoices, in case if we are exporting the goods, okay, in such cases also, so we must report, or we must issue the e-invoice. And in case of reverse charge invoices, reverse charge supplies, the outward supplies for reverse chargeable items or services, so we must report, or we must generate e-invoice. And in case of credit notes, any sales return, okay, suppose we have made a taxable sales and the goods has been returned from the customer, so the sales return transactions or the credit note transactions also we must report, or we must generate the e-invoice. Similarly, in case of debit notes also, that is for the purchase returns, so any purchase return transactions also, so e-invoicing is must. Okay. So these are, so whatever we are discussing here are the type of transactions for which the e-invoicing has to be reported in the system. It is mandatory that we have to issue the e-invoicing. So to make you understand the difference between the current practice of generating an invoice, that is a manual tax invoice, and the implementation of the e-invoice for GST, so I'll try to make you understand the importance of it. Okay, considering an example here, the current practice, that is as of now under a manual billing system, okay, or issuing a manual taxable invoice, what happens is the supplier will deliver, or he will supply the goods or the services, and he will raise a tax invoice on the buyer, correct? And then what happens is the supplier will generate an e-way bill if applicable before shipping the goods, right? So after issuing the tax invoice, the supplier will generate the e-way bill, so based on the 50,000 rupees if the total value of goods, right? So if it exceeds more than 50,000 rupees for interstate supply of goods, mandatorily we have to generate e-way bill, right? So in case of intrastate, then it is not mandatory to generate, but still we can generate e-way bill. But under the current practice, so what happens is after issuing the tax invoice, the supplier will generate the e-way bill before shipping the goods, and then he will ship the goods, correct? And after delivering the goods to the buyer or to the customer, the supplier will upload the details of the invoice in GSTR1 at the end of the period, right? So that is for the filing the returns, right? So this is how the flow works in case of generating the invoice and uploading the returns. So now we'll try to understand how this practice is going to change. Okay, and under the current practice of generating the invoice and returns, so when it comes to the returns part, after the buyer uploads the GSTR1, so what happens is that GSTR3B has to be filed, right? So a monthly return has to be filed, so that the buyer can take the input tax credit based on the self-assessed GSTR3B, right? So this is in continuation to the current practice of generating the invoice, correct? And then after claiming the input tax credit, right? In case if the invoice is not reflected in GSTR 2A or the upcoming period, the buyer has to reverse the ITC. So this is the complete flow from generating the invoice till filing the returns under the current practice. Okay, when it comes to the e-invoicing, when under the upcoming practice of generating invoice for those businesses whose turnover is equal to or more than 100 crores with effective from 1st January 2021. So if you can just observe, the supplier will directly send an e-invoice to the buyer, and the printing, posting the invoice, transportation, sorting, registration, all this complete flow or the complete steps has been eliminated. It will be removed. It is very simple that the supplier will directly generate an e-invoice, and that e-invoice will appear in the buyer account automatically. Okay, so that is the purpose of e-invoicing. And here if we can observe, so whatever we have discussed, that is the current practice, correct? So that has been eliminated. And what are the benefits of e-invoice to a business? So the main benefit of issuing an e-invoice is reduce mismatch errors. Okay, so firstly, this e-invoice will reduce all the errors due to mismatch in the invoice, and this will also help us in the real-time tracking of invoices prepared by the supplier. Okay, so real-time tracking also, we can easily, using a QR code scanner, we can easily track the invoices prepared by the supplier. And the one more benefit of e-invoice to the business is the faster availability of the genuine input tax credit. So once after issuing the e-invoice, so ITC will be available automatically. Okay, it is a faster availability. And lastly, so using this e-invoice to the business, the integration of all systems is expected to reduce the compliance burden on the taxpayer. Okay, so in the previous slides we have seen under the current practice and the upcoming practice of e-invoicing how different the processes, right, the steps. So using this e-invoicing, so we are eliminating all the methods, all the steps of generating manual invoicing and posting it or sending it to the buyer, and then later on claiming for ITC after filing GST 3B. So all these processes has got eliminated, right? So these are the benefits of e-invoice to the businesses. Next is the various modes of generating e-invoice. Okay, so I'll discuss what is this IRP portal, and IRP is nothing but invoice registration portal, and I'll tell you what is the importance of this and a business how to register through IRP. But just I'm telling you the different modes through which we can generate the e-invoice. Okay, so let's say there is a portal that is called IRP portal, that is invoice registration portal. So those large taxpayers whose turnover is more than 500 crores, so they will have their own business portal. Okay, so using their business portal they can easily generate e-invoice. That is one method. If not, so a dealer can directly log in to the IRP portal and directly he can enter or he can generate the e-invoice. And the third method is through API. Okay, so we have the GSP, that is GST Suvidha providers, right? So TallyPrime being an API, okay, so from the ERP application, easily we can record the transactions and instantly through GSP, that is through GST Suvidha providers, we can easily generate e-invoice. If not, we can also send an SMS, okay, from the registered mobile number, the registered with the GST, and we can generate the e-invoice. If not, we can also use the mobile app. If not, finally we can use the offline tools, okay, the Excel utility through which we can generate the e-invoice. So these are the various methods of generating the e-invoice under the upcoming GST e-invoice feature. Okay, so now comes the role of IRP in e-invoice. So I have told you IRP is nothing but the invoice registration portal through which the dealer must log into that portal and register himself for the first time. Say for example, I am running a business and my turnover exceeds 100 crores, then e-invoicing is applicable from 1st January 2021 onwards. Then what I'm supposed to do is I have to log into the IRP portal and register, okay, myself for issuing the e-invoices. Okay, so this IRP portal will accept all the e-invoice documents which are prepared by the taxpayers. Okay, so that is the main point we have to consider here. And then that IRP, that is the invoice registration portal, will validate the document as per the e-invoice schema and performs additional checks on the contents of the e-invoice. What this portal will do is, after accepting the e-invoice document which is generated by the taxpayer, it will validate for the correctness of the document as per the schema, that is as per the conditions of e-invoice, and it will follow the additional checks. Okay, and once after recognizing the invoice as a standard format, okay, after following the additional checks, then only it will consider as an e-invoice and then generates a unique invoice reference number, that is IRN, which is digitally signed with the e-invoice and generates a QR code with a high level of details of the invoice, and the IRP will reply to the user with the required details. Okay, so this is what the IRP does in case of this e-invoicing. Firstly, what IRP does is, whatever the tax invoice is generated by the supplier, okay, so it will get uploaded in the IRP portal, right? The IRP will accept the invoice, it will validate the document, and then it will generate the IRN, that is invoice reference number. So this invoice reference number will have some 64 digits. It is an alphanumeric character and with a digital signature along with a QR code. The QR code will be printed on the invoice and that will be sent to the taxpayer automatically. That is the role of IRP. So all of this will have a look in TallyPrime when it comes to the product demo. Okay, so now we'll discuss on the e-invoice generation flow. Okay, so how the e-invoice generation flow will work in our in the current scenario. Okay, so firstly, under the first point is as a seller. Okay, must digitize the business transactions. So in order to digitize the business transaction, what the seller will do is he will upload the tax invoice in a standard format, correct, to the IRP portal. And then what IRP does, that is invoice registration portal does, is the invoice will be accepted by the IRP, that is the information will be published to the IRP. And after publishing the information to IRP, what IRP does is the IRP will generate the IRN, that is invoice registration number, and it will check for any duplication with the GST system. Okay, automatically the IRP will check for any duplication in invoice, and after checking it will sign. The IRP will digitally put a signature of the IRP, and it will add a QR code to the JSON, okay, JSON file structure. And then what happens is the GST system, what it does in this case, the invoice information will get stored in the GST invoice registry. Okay, so after the IRP validates and applies the QR code saying that yes, this is a unique invoice, okay, taxable invoice, the GST system, okay, will store the information in the GST invoice registry, and after checking for the duplication, and then the GST system will send back the information to the IRP with a digitally signed JSON to seller with a QR code included in it. Okay, so now this invoice is in the IRP. So then what IRP does, the information will be sent to the seller. Now the seller is receiving the digitally signed JSON of e-invoice that contains the QR code. Simultaneously, the seller's GSTR1 return also gets updated with the liability entered in the invoice. So this is happening instantly in the GST portal. And then under the buyer's account, what happens is now the buyer can use the QR code to verify the invoice. What buyer can do is, so using his gadget, easily he can scan on the QR code. So once he scans the QR code, automatically he will get the complete invoice details in his hands. Okay, so this is how the invoice generation flow works under the e-invoice structure. And the buyer, after scanning the invoice, he'll come to know that yes, this is a valid invoice that I have received from the supplier. Now the buyer can use the ITC, that is input tax credit, related to the invoice in his GSTR 2A. Okay, and then the IRP will authenticate the payload to the GST system and sends to the e-way bill system also. So whatever discussing here under invoice registration portal and under GST system, so it's all happening automatically within a fraction of seconds. So here it is not taking a lot of time. Okay, it's taking an hour or a day time here. So it all happens instantly within few seconds. Okay, and the IRP at last, it will send the report to the GST system, and now the unique invoice with the unique number will be available. The GSTR1 of the seller gets updated, and even the GSTR2A of buyer gets updated automatically. So here it is just a one click. We have to issue a e-invoice, and rest of the things, it's all automated. And whatever processes we have seen here from the IRP and the GST system point of view, it's all automated. Okay, so this is how the e-invoice generation flow will work. Okay, so being a taxpayer or being a registered regular dealer, so what we do is just we generate an invoice and we will send it, or we will upload it to the IRP, and the next complete process of validation, checking for duplication, applying the QR code, right, updating the GSTR 1 and GSTR 2A, all happens instantly. Okay, so if the invoice is correct, then automatically ITC will be available. Okay, and if the invoice is rejected, then all the processes will be will not be followed and it will be restricted. So that is how the invoice generation flow works. And at last, when it comes to the buyer, the e-way bill system will create the e-way bill. So we are aware of the e-way bill, how the e-way bill process flow works, right, under GST. So that will remain as is. So now comes e-invoice details. So now if you are having a look at this screen here, I hope you all are able to see the screen, right? So the invoice format, what I'm showing now. So you can just confirm through the questions panel, because in case if you have any issues in viewing the slide or in the audio, then it will be very difficult for us to take back and again start up. So if you all are able to see the invoice screen, okay, the tax invoice screen, so this is how the e-invoice will look like. So here I have just captured a screenshot for you to make understand, okay, so how the e-invoice will look like. And here if you have observed, so this, the first part of the tax invoice, so here we could see the IRN, that is invoice registration number, with almost 64 digits, which is an alphanumeric character. And then we have an acknowledgement number, and then we have acknowledgement date, followed by the QR code. You can observe the e-invoice QR code will capture automatically in the invoice, and whatever invoice format I have captured here in this slide is the tax invoice generated from TallyPrime. Okay, and now if I scan, if I scan this QR code, then automatically I'll be getting the complete e-invoice details. Okay, so that is how so it is been improvised. Okay, so this is the format of e-invoice, and this e-invoice will contain the details of the seller details, that is name, address, GSTN, PIN code, etc., buyer details, consignee details, dispatch related information, item information, that is quantity, rate, UQC, amount, HSN details, invoice details like invoice number, date or discount, other charges or any other amount, export details if applicable like shipping number, date, port code, currency and country code, and e-way bill details like transporter details, distance, mode and PIN code. So all of this information will capture in the e-invoice format. Okay, and this is how the e-invoice will look like. Okay, so we'll generate this in TallyPrime, and I'll show you how simple it is in TallyPrime for us to generate an e-invoice. Okay, so now comes IRN. What is IRN? So IRN refers to a unique invoice reference number. Okay, a unique invoice reference number, and this unique invoice reference number will be in an alphanumeric character, which is automatically generated from the IRP, that is Invoice Registration Portal. And this IRN, that is Invoice Reference Number, will help the buyers, tax authorities, and someone else, that is to whomever it matters to uniquely identify the invoices which are raised in India. Okay, and there is no way that this IRN number will get duplicated. Why is it? Because it is a system generated number. And this IRN, that is Invoice Reference Number, will be formed by combining, or it's a combination of the information using an algorithm based on SHA-25/6 hash. So this IRN will contain the details with regard to the supplier GSTN, financial year of the service, that is invoice, a document type, that is whether it is a tax invoice or whether it is a credit note or a debit note, and then followed by the invoice number or the document number. So putting all this four information together, okay, so using a secured algorithm, so this IRN, that is Invoice Reference Number, will be generated by the IRP, that is Invoice Registration Portal, which is very unique. Okay, so next comes the e-invoice life cycle, that is when it comes to generation. Okay, after generating the e-invoice, if the invoice is raised by the supplier, the invoice is uploaded to IRP, that is Invoice Registration Portal, within 48 hours. However, currently the system is allowing us to upload, so within 48 hours, so we must upload the invoice raised by the supplier. And whenever possible, this condition also may get changed also. So currently the invoices which is raised by the supplier is uploaded to IRP within 48 hours. However, currently allowed up to the GST return filing, and then the IRN is generated successfully. The invoice is printed with IRN and QR code, and it is handed over to the buyer. And along with the e-way bill, along with the e-invoice, so e-way bill also can be generated through IRP portal, and IRN is mandatory for generating e-way bill. So what happens in this case is, firstly, the e-invoice has to be received, okay, and then only using that IRN number, that is the unique number which is given to us, that is very much required for us to generate the e-way bill. And using the IRN, the e-way bill can be generated on the IRP portal or in the e-way bill portal also. And for those invoices that do not require registration on IRP, that is for B2C invoices, for those e-way bill can be directly generated through that is e-way bill portal, like before. So however the e-way bill system works, so we can follow the same rule. But only when a business is issuing an e-invoice along with e-way bill, then only they can raise the e-way bill either in the IRP portal or in the e-way bill portal. And when it comes to the modification of e-invoice, so any invoices generated cannot be modified on IRP. That is, the Invoice Registration Portal will not be possible for us to generate, that is modify the already generated invoices. And e-invoices will have to be cancelled for such invoices. So any modifications required, so such e-invoice must be cancelled, and then again it has to be generated. So modification is not possible. and the new invoices will have to be raised and uploaded on IRP, since the same invoice number cannot be used for generation of IRN. So as we have already discussed, so this IRN is a unique number, right? So nowhere it gets duplicated. So in case of any modifications, so the same IRN number cannot be taken into a consideration. So that is the reason we have to cancel the invoice and we have to raise a new invoice and then upload in the IRP portal to get the e-invoice automatically. Okay, and in case of cancellation, so an e-invoice can be cancelled on or before next day midnight of its generation. So it is not immediately we have to cancel. So this cancellation can be done on or before next day, okay, of generating the e-invoice. And beyond that, any debit note, that is for purchase returns, or credit note for sales return, can be raised to nullify the invoice information. Okay, to make the invoice value 0, we can for the equal amount of invoice, we can raise the debit note or credit note. So this is with regard to cancellation of e-invoice. And when it comes to returns, okay, so those invoices once uploaded to IRP, okay, that is to invoice registration portal, the invoice information will be auto-populated into the GSTR1 of the supplier and GSTR2A or 2B of the recipient. Okay, and the supplier also can modify the invoice details in the GST returns. However, these modifications will be applied only to GST returns and not to e-invoice. We have already discussed that the e-invoice modification is not possible, right? But this modification can be done in the GST returns, like how we do currently. The current practice of modifying the invoice details in the GST returns can be done, but not on the e-invoice. Okay, so I hope by now you have understood what is e-invoice and how this e-invoice, the introduction of e-invoice into a business, and what type of businesses must follow the condition, and the e-invoicing life cycle management. Once after generating an invoice, how the process flow works. Okay, and now I'll take you through the product walkthrough. Okay, in TallyPrime, how the e-invoicing is handled and how simple it is for us to handle e-invoicing in TallyPrime. Okay, so before starting with the demonstration, so firstly we'll try to understand the key features, okay, of the connected e-invoice experience for GST regular dealers in TallyPrime. So in TallyPrime, generating an e-invoice is very quick and using a simple setup. And the TallyPrime has the flexibility to generate or cancel e-invoices on a real-time basis for a single invoice or for a bulk invoices. And also the TallyPrime has inbuilt ability to generate e-way bill along with the e-invoice wherever applicable. And in exceptional scenarios, TallyPrime has the ability to handle e-invoice in an offline mode by exporting all the invoices into a JSON format. And all the reports, okay, that allow you to take care of invoice, that is e-invoice related pending activities, to keep you a track of the status of e-invoices. So we have a beautifully built report where you can easily check how many invoices has been generated, how many are pending, how many invoices have got cancelled. A complete statistical view, that is a bird's eye view, is provided in TallyPrime. And moving from the current practice of generating an invoice to e-invoice is effortless in TallyPrime. Okay, if the screen is visible, so this is the company, and here we are using the latest release of TallyPrime, or release 1.1, which is launched yesterday. Okay, and here we are going to, I'll show you the simple step of activating e-invoice, generating an e-invoice, and how to check for the reports. Okay, and this is the company I have created, that is JJ Enterprises Private Limited. Okay, and here if you are creating a company for the first time, then what happens is, as you all are aware, after creating the company, correct, the company features alteration screen will appear to activate GST, right? Hence this company is already created in my books of accounts. I'm going to activate e-invoice now. So how do I activate is, from Gateway of Tally, I'll click on company, the top menu, so, or you can press Alt K. Okay, and here under configured we have F11 features. Okay, I'll enter on features. So the company features alteration screen will appear, and I'll just move the cursor to enable goods and services tax. And here if you can observe, so yes, my company is registered under a regular dealer with GST applicable from 1st April 2020, provided with a valid GSTN, and periodicity of filing the returns is monthly. And here if you can observe, we have the second column here with the heading called invoice features. Under invoice features, the e-way bill applicable is set to yes, applicable from 1st April. The threshold limit is based on the invoice value. The threshold limit is 50,000 rupees. I'll say applicable even for intrastate supply also, I have made it as yes. So that is with regard to e-way bill. Okay, and here we have an additional option called e-invoicing applicable. So this option I have to set it to yes. Okay, in the GST details screen, so this option is newly introduced in TallyPrime release 1.1 in order to use the e-invoice in the company. So here I'll set this option to yes. So once after I enable the option e-invoicing applicable to yes, the applicable from, so here it is capturing as 1st Jan 21 by default. Why is that? Because as we have already discussed that for those businesses whose turnover of the last 3 preceding years exceeds more than 100 crores, right? So they are mandatorily, they have to start issuing e-invoices with effective from 1st Jan 2021 onwards. So the applicable from is by default, but still we can change the applicable from here also. Okay, we can change it if required. And here the bill from place. So this bill from place is the place or the location from where the invoices are getting generated. Say for example, my company is located in Bengaluru. Okay, and bill from place I have entered as Bengaluru. So this bill from place and bill to place will play a very important role in case of generating an e-invoice. Okay, and this field cannot be left blank. If this field is left blank, then the e-invoice cannot be issued, or it cannot be sent to IRP. The next is the default period for e-invoice report. So usually what happens is, so Tally automatically picks 3 days. That is after generating an invoice. Okay, so within 3 days you can upload the invoice to the IRP. Okay, so within 72 hours. So that is the reason. So here it is by default 3 days, but still if you wanted to change it, then you can change as per the business requirement. So here I'll just retain it as 3 days itself. And later, if we are also generating the e-way bill along with the e-invoice, then here comes the option send e-way bill details with e-invoice. So this option I can make it as yes. Okay, so here currently what we'll do is, firstly I'll set this option to no, that is we are not sending e-way bill along with e-invoice. Later on we'll activate this option and then we'll show you how it will be taken care. So firstly I'll make you understand how simple it is for us to generate an e-invoice in TallyPrime. So after activating e-invoice, I'll accept the screen. Okay, and I'll accept the company features alteration screen also. So now, so this company is ready for generating e-invoices. So that is the only configuration we must do in Tally. Now we'll consider that today the date is 2nd Jan. Okay, the current date is the 2nd January 2021, and we are issuing an invoice now. Okay, I'm billing a tax invoice. I'm recording a tax invoice. Okay, the reference number. Okay, I'll enter the date. And here I have a party. The party name is ABC Enterprises Private Limited. Remember, we have not done any changes in the party. So as usual, how this company was created, we have entered or we have created a customer ledger under sundry datas, provided with the mailing address, mailing details, which is very much required for a tax invoice, along with the registration type and the GSTN of the customer. Okay, so I'll accept the dispatch details screen, and also I'll accept the party details screen also, so which is automated based on the party ledger creation. And next comes the sales account. Okay, so this sales account I'll select, and here I have a list of stock items where I can select. Right? Say suppose we are raising an invoice for this particular stock item. Okay, Dell Inspiron 3505. So once after I select the stock item, okay, if you can observe, there is an option provide e-invoice details is appearing by default. So Tally is identifying that this particular stock item is a GST enabled stock. It is a GST compliant transaction for which e-invoice is mandatory. So here I'll enter the quantity as one number, and I'll enter the quantity, that is enter the rate as, say for example, 40,000 rupees. Okay, so this company JJ Enterprises Private Limited is located in Karnataka in a city called Bengaluru, and the customer, that is ABC Enterprises Private Limited, is also located in Karnataka. So hence it is an intrastate outward supply. Okay, so central tax and state tax is applicable on this invoice, which is automated. So 18% is the tax we have defined for this stock item. Okay, and as soon as I enter on provide e-invoice details, if I make it as yes, so here comes the place of party. Okay, so bill to place and ship to. So this information, so we have to enter it. If not, so this information will capture directly from the party ledger. Say for example, I'll just enter the details, okay, to show you that it is possible for us to manually change the bill to place and ship to place. And from this screen, if you click on F12, and here we'll have an option to provide a dispatch from details also. Okay, dispatch from details is nothing but for the JJ Enterprises Private Limited company details. Okay, and you can easily accept it. So this is the bill-wise detail screen, and now the invoice is ready to accept. Now if you are observing, there is a new screen which appears in TallyPrime release 1.1, that is, do you want to generate e-invoice? So this is the option we have provided. In case if that invoice is not proper, or if the invoice is not properly recorded, or if that bill to information is not provided, okay, then so you will not be able to get the screen. So instead, so Tally will prompt you a message to correct the details. So here, do you want to generate e-invoice? If I make it as yes, I'll click on yes. If you can observe, the Tally is asking us to log into the e-invoice portal automatically. It's not I have to minimize Tally, log into the invoice registration portal, that is IRP, and upload the invoice. No. So here TallyPrime is directly being a GST Suvidha provider, so we are directly connecting with the IRP to generate e-invoice. So here I'll enter the username and password. Okay, so in order to get this username and password, so we must log into IRP, that is Invoice Registration Portal. Okay, and then we have to register the company there. Okay, so that registration process is very simple. You need to just log into the portal with a valid GSTN details. Okay, and you have to register there. Until and unless you register in the IRP, that is Invoice Registration Portal, you will not be able to issue an e-invoice. Correct? So that is, we are very clear. And here, once I enter, okay, if I press enter on this particular transaction, so what happens is automatically this invoice, the tax invoice, will be sent to IRP, that is Invoice Registration Portal, and immediately, instantly, within fraction of seconds, the IRN, that is Invoice Reference Number, and the QR code will be captured automatically, or it will be printed automatically in the invoice. Okay, so here if you can observe, so for the same invoice, so what happens is the tax invoice, the IRN number will be printed along with the acknowledgement number and acknowledgement date along with the QR code. So this is the level of the simplicity we have built. Okay, and this after receiving or after taking the print of this invoice, so what happens is, if we go back to the transaction, and enable the option provide e-invoice details to yes, the acknowledgement number and IRN will capture automatically. Okay, so this field, whatever I am showing you here, is the option what we have seen, that is e-invoice details screen, right, where we have entered the place of party, that is bill to place and ship to place. So in that screen, the acknowledgement number and IRN will capture automatically. So this is how we are handling this e-invoicing in TallyPrime. Okay, and in case if we are providing an invalid details, say for example, I'm logging into the portal to upload the details, and the system will validate automatically, and it will tell you that the user does not exist or there is an incorrect user. So in case if this is a situation while issuing an e-invoice, then automatically you have to log into the IRP and register yourself for issuing e-invoices. Okay, so to just to make you understand, so I'll quickly go to the particular invoice alteration screen. If you're observing, so this is the sales invoice alteration screen. I'll just enable this provide e-invoice details to yes, and if you can observe here, the acknowledgement number and IRN along with the acknowledgement is getting captured. Okay, and also so TallyPrime has, so we are providing the users to enter the IRN manually also. That is, in case if you are generating or if you are uploading the returns or uploading the e-invoice separately using the IRP, okay, using offline mode, then if you wanted to enter the details, then it is, we have provided the option here. And in case if this option or if the values what you have entered is less than 64 characters, that is, the invoice reference number will have 64 digits, 64 characters, which is in an alphanumeric. If it is, so this cursor or this screen will allow you to enter the IRN up to 64 digits or 64 characters, not more than that. And if it is less than 64, then Tally will prompt you a message saying that the IRN is less than 64. Okay, so this is how one particular invoice we can easily generate an e-invoicing. Okay, and now I'll show you, I'll just log into another company and I'll show you in case of multiple transactions if recorded. Okay, so it's not that each and every invoices you must issue an e-invoice. So what you can do is, at the time of saving the tax invoice or saving the sales voucher, you can ignore that message. Do you want to export or do you want it to generate e-invoice? You can make it as no. So what happens is all the invoices will be listed in a report. So that report in TallyPrime will be available in the top menu option, that is exchange. Okay, under exchange you can find all the invoices which are ready for invoicing, that is, which are ready for e-invoicing. So under exchange, I'll click on send for e-invoicing and I'll enter the period from 1st January to 10th Jan. And here if you can observe, so I have recorded 3 transactions. Okay, so this is the bird's eye view report. So here I have a list of transactions which are ready for IRN generation. See if you can observe, so pending for generation, it shows 3 numbers, that is 3 invoices which are ready for generating e-invoice. And from here also, if you have n number of transactions, using the space bar, you can select the invoices and you can click on send. If you click on send, see automatically those 2 invoices will be generated. It will say for IRN generation 2. Do you want to continue? If I continue, make it as yes, I have to just log in. Okay, and press enter. So those 2 invoices will be sent to IRN automatically, and those 2 invoices will be updated with IR, that is with QR code and invoice reference number. Okay, so this is in case of bulk. If not, if we are unable to directly log in or to the portal and upload the invoices, we have also provided the offline export option here. That is offline export. If I click on offline export, so if I make it as yes, so what happens is the export screen will appear. With the file format by default is JSON, it will be exported to the local drive. The folder path given is the D drive where the TallyPrime 1.1 is installed. So here the JSON file will be exported, and if I click on send, okay, all the invoices will be exported and it will be listed automatically. So here we can observe, so this is the file, that is e-Invoice followed by the GST number along with the date and time. The JSON file will be created, and this JSON file we can log into the IRP, that is invoice registration portal, and upload in order to generate e-invoicing. So this is in case of offline upload. Correct. So Tally has that inbuilt ability to export the e-invoices automatically, okay, and get the details. If not, you can also export the returns offline. And now again, if I click on exchange, I'll go to send for e-invoicing, and now if you have observed, the total invoices are 0. Why is it? Because all pending 3 invoices we have exported to JSON. And here we have a list of options here. If I click on that F5 e-invoice, so here I'll get those the statistical report with the information required for e-invoice provided or for IRN generation. Here if you can observe, so there is one particular transaction. Okay, I'll just press enter on that, number 1. So here Tally will show you the information which is required for e-invoice, which is not provided. You can observe we have serial number, voucher date, voucher number, voucher type, particulars, party, and here at the last column we have the type of exception. We have the type of exception. So here the type of exception is the bill to and the PIN code is not entered, okay, in the invoice. So this is an error. So we must rectify this. How do we rectify? Is by pressing enter. By pressing enter, so here if you can observe, the buyer bill to is appearing by default. I'll just enter the buyer bill to as Chennai, and I'll enter the PIN code as, for example, 60120. Okay, so once after I enter the valid details and if I accept, So if you can observe, this particular transaction will be removed from the mismatch and it will show under for IRN generation. And those 3 transactions what we have already exported using the offline JSON tool, so that will be available here. Okay, and if you can remember, we have exported it in a JSON file, correct? And that JSON will be manually uploaded to IRN because we have exported offline. And after getting the IRN, it is invoice reference number and the valid details. So what we can do is the acknowledgement number, the date has to be entered, right? So here we can click on get IRN info. Just we have to select the particular invoice and click on get IRN info. So here what happens is automatically the IRN information can be captured in the invoice. Okay, so once I click on that get IRN info, then I can easily log in here. And if I press enter, then automatically the IRN will get captured for this particular invoice. That is one method. If not, if we have received the IRN manually and if we wanted to upload the details manually, then you can select the particular invoice by pressing spacebar and click on manually update IRN info, or you can press Alt yes. Okay, and here comes the IRN information where you can enter having 64 digits. Okay, and you can enter the acknowledgement number and acknowledgement date and accept. Okay, so this is how we can easily handle the e-invoice solution in TallyPrime. And now if you can observe, so pending, there is one transaction for uploading, and there is 2 transactions which are already exported for which the IRN has to be entered, and there is one invoice for which IRN is updated. That is, we have entered the IRN and acknowledgement number manually without QR code. Okay, so this is how also Tally will handle. So I'll just take a print. I'll just show you the print, the preview, and I'll show you. You can observe we have entered the IRN number but without a QR code because it is not updated automatically, right? So only the IRN acknowledgement number and acknowledgement date will capture without QR code. So this is how we can easily handle this e-invoicing solution in TallyPrime. Okay. And when it comes to with regard to currency also, in case if so as you all are aware, in case of export invoices also, we have to mandatorily issue an e-invoice, right? So in TallyPrime, when it comes to a currency, the currency must be uploaded with the set of information. Say for example, JJ Electronics Private Limited is creating a currency. Okay, so we are dealing with a multi-currency transactions. If I'm creating a new currency, okay, say for example, I'm creating a new currency. Okay, and here if you can observe, there is an option called ISO currency code. So this currency code, so this is new as per the latest e-invoice standards, and this currency code has to be updated. And it's not that we have to enable from any other options. It is directly while creating the currency or while altering the currency, Okay, we can get this option. I'll click on alter currency for Indian rupees, and here comes the ISO currency code. Okay, so here we have to enter the currency code if any. Okay, so let me try to create a new currency. Okay, in such a situation, so here we have to enter the ISO currency code. Okay, and this is one change with regard to if we are dealing with the foreign currencies. Okay, so I hope in the today's session at least you have understood what is e-invoicing. Okay, what is the method or what is the process of this e-invoicing, how important the e-invoicing when it comes to business, and how easily we can generate e-invoicing in TallyPrime. Okay, so we have a list of questions here, and there is a question asked how many digit of IRN. So I have shown you, so IRN will have up to 64 characters, 54 which is alphanumeric characters. There is one more question: can we generate the IRN offline or later on? Yes. So that is what we have discussed now, right? So all invoices, it is left to the user. If we wanted to export all, that is the bulk invoices at one go offline and update the IRN, then that is also possible. Okay, so that is also possible. If not, if we wanted to update all, that is bulk invoices, if I wanted to select and update the IRN and QR code instantly, that also I have shown you from that exchange option, right? From the e-invoicing report, how easy it is for us to generate instantly.